Maya, what are you doing out here? You're all wet. Lucas Harding slammed his car door and ran into the storm. Rain fell hard, cold and heavy, soaking his coat in seconds. He looked around, and there she was, Maya Williams, his maid, sitting under the old oak tree with a small lunchbox on her lap. Her blue uniform was stuck to her skin. Her dark hair was wet and flat against her face. Her hands shook as she held a spoon. She looked cold, scared, and alone. Like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Maya, he shouted again, his voice cutting through the thunder. Why are you eating out here? Go inside now. She jumped like a scared kitten, closing the lunchbox fast. I'm sorry, sir, she said softly, looking at the ground. I didn't mean... Before he could speak again, a calm voice came from behind him. She shouldn't even be out here, sir, said Eleanor, the housekeeper. She walked up slowly, standing under her black umbrella like a queen. I was about to tell you about her. She broke the Harding family vase today, the crystal one from your grandmother's collection. Lucas turned fast. What? He said, shocked. Eleanor sighed and looked down, her voice smooth and sad. I found it broken in the dining hall. She was the only one there. I tried to ask her about it, but she refused to admit it. Maya's head lifted. Her eyes went wide with fear. No, sir. That's not true, she cried. Lucas's face grew hard. That vase had belonged to his grandmother. It was one of his family's most precious things. You broke it? He shouted. After I told you never to go near that room? I didn't, sir. Maya's voice cracked. I was cleaning the hallway when Mrs. Eleanor... Enough! His shout was louder than the storm. Don't lie to me, Maya. I can't stand lies in my house. The sound of his voice made her step back. Her heel slipped on the wet stone, and she fell. Her palm hit the rough ground, and the lunchbox rolled away. Rice and beans spilled into the mud. Rain mixed with the blood on her hand. She didn't cry. She just looked up at him with sad, shiny eyes, full of pain and something that looked like heartbreak. I didn't do it, she whispered. Please believe me. Lucas stood over her, breathing hard, confused, and angry. Behind him, Eleanor spoke again, her tone soft, but cruel. She's been careless for weeks, sir. I told her many times. She's not ready for delicate work. Maya turned toward her, voice shaking. You know that's not true. You told me to clean the cabinet, and then you... She stopped when she saw Eleanor's cold eyes. The older woman smiled a tiny, warning smile, one that Lucas couldn't see. Maya's lips trembled. She looked down and said nothing. Lucas rubbed his wet hair with one hand and sighed. I don't want to hear another word tonight. Clean this up. We'll talk tomorrow. Eleanor nodded, calm as ever. Of course, sir. I'll make sure she does. Maya pressed her bleeding hand against her apron. Yes, sir, she whispered. Her voice was so small it almost vanished in the rain. Before the storm started, the mansion had been silent. The hallways smelled like lemon, Polish. In the main hallway, the big crystal vase stood shining under the chandelier. Maya was cleaning the cabinet beside it, her small hands moving carefully over the glass. Eleanor came in, her arms crossed, eyes cold. You missed a spot, she said, tapping the wood with her finger. Maya turned quickly. As she did, Eleanor's elbow brushed the pedestal. The vase shook, tipped, and crashed to the marble floor. The sound was loud like a gunshot. Pieces of glass scattered everywhere. Eleanor froze for a second, then looked straight at Maya. Oh my, she said softly. What have you done? It wasn't me. Quiet, Eleanor hissed, stepping close. Her voice turned sharp. No one saw what happened. If you want to keep your job, take the blame. If not, I'll tell Mr. Harding you stole food again. Understand? Maya's eyes filled with tears. Please, I didn't. Then leave, Eleanor said coldly. Go outside before he gets home. Sit there until I decide what to say. And remember, silence keeps you safe. Maya looked down, shaking. She didn't have the courage to fight back. That's how she ended up outside, sitting in the cold rain, holding her lunchbox like it was all she had left. Lucas Harding stood near the fireplace in his study. The storm crashed outside, but his mind was louder. He had changed into dry clothes, but guilt still burned inside him. He poured a drink, staring into the fire. Eleanor's story sounded right. She had worked for him for years. She never lied. But Maya's face, those scared eyes, they didn't look like a liar's eyes. He walked to the window. Rain rolled down the glass like tears. Outside, under the oak tree, Maya still sat. Her small body looked weak and cold. Lucas sighed. Damn it, he said quietly. Why won't she just go inside? A soft knock came at the door. Come in, he said. It was Henry, the old gardener. His gray hair was wet, and his boots were muddy. In his hand, he held a small USB wrapped in plastic. Sir, Henry said softly, looking toward the window, I think you should see this before deciding about Miss Williams. Lucas frowned. What is it? Henry walked closer, his voice low. Security footage. I installed a backup camera near the east corridor, by the dining hall. Mrs. Eleanor doesn't know about it. I saw what really happened. Lucas's heart started to pound. What do you mean? Henry handed him the USB. Sir, she's been cruel to that girl for months. Makes her work extra hours, shouts when you're not around. Today, she broke the vase herself and blamed Maya. Lucas went still. The room fell silent except for the sound of the fire. You're sure? He asked, voice low. Henry nodded. Yes, sir. I saw it myself. The camera caught it before the rain cut the power. She told me to keep quiet, or she'd fire me. But I can't stand by and watch that poor girl suffer. Lucas looked down at the small USB in his hand. It felt heavy, like it carried all his guilt. Thank you, Henry, he said softly. That'll be all. Henry nodded and left the room, closing the door behind him. Lucas sat down in his leather chair, staring at the silver drive. His chest felt tight. His mind replayed everything. Maya's shaking hands, her bleeding palm, her soft voice saying, I didn't do it. He had believed a lie. He had yelled at her. He had hurt her. He covered his face with both hands. God, he whispered. What have I done? Outside, the storm started to fade. The rain slowed to a soft drizzle. Under the oak tree, Maya still sat, unaware that the truth now rested on his desk, inside a tiny silver drive. For a long time, Lucas just sat there, watching the rain. The guilt didn't go away. It grew heavier with every passing minute. For the first time in years, Lucas Harding, the rich, proud man who thought he had control over everything, felt something real. Remorse. Lucas wrapped a clean bandage around Maya's hand. She sat quietly on a stool, watching him. His movements were careful, his jaw tight with focus. She still wore his coat, a little too big for her small frame. You have a son, he said suddenly, not looking up. Joshua, right? Her eyes widened in surprise. How do you... Henry told me, he said softly. Said he saw some drawings in your apartment. Maya nodded, her expression softening. He wants to be a doctor someday. Lucas tied off the bandage and met her eyes. Then we'll make sure he gets that chance. Maya blinked, unsure how to respond. Her lips parted, but no words came. You don't have to thank me, Lucas said gently. Just promise me one thing. Never believe you deserve less than the truth again. Her shoulders shook, not from cold, but from everything she had been holding inside. For the first time that night, she let herself cry quietly, her face hidden in her hands. Lucas stood there in silence, giving her the space she needed. Outside, the storm had almost stopped. The last drops of rain tapped softly against the window. The long, terrible night was finally ending. Tomorrow would be a different day. Lucas Harding didn't sleep. The mansion had fallen into its usual late-night silence. Only the faint hum of the heater and the steady ticking of the grandfather clock filled the air. But inside him, everything was loud. He had sent Maya home 2 hours earlier, offering her a ride. She had politely refused. I prefer to walk, she had said. It helps me clear my head. He had watched her go, still wearing his coat, walking down the path with quiet dignity despite everything. Now, he stood in his study again. The USB drive was still plugged into his laptop. He had watched the footage 5 more times since she left. Each time, the same scenes. Eleanor's lies, Maya's fear, and each time, the guilt hit harder. How long had this been happening? How many mornings had Maya arrived early, hoping to be noticed, but finding only cruelty? How many nights had she gone hungry so her son could have medicine? He had missed it all, not because he didn't care, but because he never looked close enough. He poured himself a cup of black coffee, skipped the sugar, and walked toward the hallway. His reflection in the dark glass door looked older, heavier. It was time. He pressed the intercom button. Mrs. Eleanor, please come to the main office. 5 minutes later, Eleanor entered. Her posture was perfect, her dark wool dress pressed, her face calm as ever. You called, Mr. Harding? She said smoothly, folding her hands in front of her. Lucas gestured toward the chair across his desk. Sit. She obeyed, her expression unreadable. I've seen the footage, he said. Eleanor tilted her head slightly, pretending confusion. Footage? Lucas pressed the spacebar on his laptop. The screen came alive with the video. Eleanor bumping the pedestal, the vase falling, Maya entering, Eleanor shouting, Eleanor pushing her out the back door. He paused the video right when Eleanor's finger pointed inches from Maya's face. Eleanor's mask cracked, only for a moment. Ah, she said. That camera. I didn't know Henry had installed that. Lucas's voice was quiet, but cold. No, you didn't. She didn't flinch. What would you like me to say? I'd like you to say why. For a long moment, Eleanor sat still. Then she straightened, her polite mask melting away. When she spoke again, her voice was sharp, unashamed. She doesn't belong here, she said. She walks too softly, acts like a victim. It makes the others uncomfortable. Lucas stared at her. Because she's quiet? Because she plays quiet, Eleanor replied. Don't be fooled, sir. Girls like her know how to twist sympathy. They use tears, obedience, kindness. And soon, they have everyone wrapped around their finger. Lucas's hands clenched the arms of his chair. She has a child, Eleanor. She's working 2 jobs to survive. You bullied her. You threatened her. And when she stayed silent, you called it weakness. She was never one of us, Eleanor said coldly. I've kept this house running for 16 years. Clean, proper, perfect. You didn't notice broken schedules or missing food because I fixed everything. Now you'll let it all fall apart. For her. Lucas stood slowly, anger steady and deep. "Get out." She blinked. "Excuse me?" "You're done here. Take your things. The driver will take you wherever you want, but your time at the Harding estate is over." Her voice wavered for the first time. "You would throw me out for her?" He looked at her firmly. "No, Eleanor. I'm throwing you out because I let your poison stay here for far too long." Her mouth tightened. She adjusted her jacket and said, "You'll regret this." "No," Lucas replied. "I regret not seeing you for what you are." She turned and left without another word. The next morning, the mansion felt different. Not quieter, just cleaner. Not in looks, but in spirit. Carla, one of the younger maids, found Lucas outside the breakfast room. She hesitated, then smiled softly. "Thank you, sir." "For what?" he asked. "For her." Lucas nodded once. That was enough. Later that afternoon, he gathered all the household staff in the grand hallway beneath the crystal chandelier. The same place that once carried whispers now felt full of new air. "Maya Williams is no longer a housemaid," Lucas announced clearly. "Starting today, she will work with me directly, managing staff schedules, internal affairs, and household needs." He paused, scanning their faces. "Her son's medical care will also be covered under the family trust. If anyone has a problem with this, my door is open." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Carla began to clap. One by one, others joined her until the sound filled the hall. Lucas turned away, unsure if what filled his chest was guilt, pride, or something else entirely. In a small two-bedroom apartment between a grocery store and a laundromat, Maya helped her son Joshua with his spelling homework. He sat cross-legged on the carpet, his tongue poking out as he wrote. "How do you spell honor again?" She smiled. "Honor, remember?" He laughed. "Oh, that's the British way." She giggled. "You're impossible." "One day," he said proudly, "I'll be a doctor. Then I'll buy you a real lunchbox." She laughed softly, her eyes wet. "Deal." Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Let's discuss your schedule tomorrow. We have some changes to make, starting with no more lunches in the rain." Maya stared at the screen for a long moment. Then a single tear slipped down her cheek. Not from pain, not from fear, but from something she hadn't felt in years. Being seen. The next morning, Maya returned to the Harding estate. The sky was painted in soft gold. The storm had passed, leaving the garden shining with dew. Everything felt different, lighter, freer. The walls no longer whispered, the air no longer pressed down. As she entered through the staff door, she noticed something strange. Peace. No one avoided her eyes. No one muttered as she passed. Carla smiled and greeted her gently. "Good morning, Miss Maya." "Miss Maya?" she repeated, smiling shyly. She nodded in return, adjusting the navy blazer Lucas had given her. Her old uniform was folded neatly in her bag. Today, she wasn't here as a maid. Today, she was something new. Lucas was waiting in the East Wing office, a room once used for storage, now clean and bright, with a desk and a window overlooking the garden. "Morning," he said without looking up from his phone. "Good morning, Mr. Harding," she replied. "You can call me Lucas here, if that's all right." She hesitated, then smiled. "All right, Lucas." He looked up and smiled back. A real smile this time. "There's coffee in the side room. And tea too, if you prefer that." "I do. Thank you." He pointed toward the desk. "That's yours now. You'll help me manage the household. Schedules, rotations, supplies. Things I've ignored for too long." Maya ran her fingers lightly along the desk's edge. The oak was smooth, worn, but strong, like her. I also spoke to the foundation this morning, he added. We're setting up a medical trust for Joshua. Full coverage, doctor visits, medicine, everything. Her head snapped up. You don't have to. I know, he said softly. But I want to. He's a good boy. And you're a good mother. Her throat tightened. Thank you. You've thanked me enough, he said kindly. Let's get to work. By mid-morning, Maya walked through the mansion with a clipboard, seeing everything through new eyes. This was no longer just a place she cleaned. It was a living system, full of people, habits, and stories. She passed the laundry room, where two maids folded towels, humming softly. Miss Maya, one whispered. We're glad you're still here. Thank you, Janet, she said warmly. Eleanor always said you were temporary, the other added, that you wouldn't last. Maya smiled, small but true. I'm not going anywhere. That afternoon, Lucas called her into the main office. He was studying a chart on staff turnover. Did you know we've lost 6 housekeepers in 2 years? He asked. Maya shook her head. No, but I'm not surprised. You think that was Eleanor's doing? She nodded. She made people afraid, not loyal. Fear doesn't build trust. Lucas leaned back in his chair. And you? Why did you stay? Maya's answer came quietly. Because I didn't have the choice to leave. He nodded slowly. Fair enough. A knock came at the door. Henry, the gardener, stepped in. He held his hat in his hands. Beg your pardon, sir, Miss Maya. Lucas waved him in. You don't need to knock anymore, Henry. The old man smiled. Force of habit. He looked at Maya. Just wanted to say thank you. For staying strong. For making this place warm again. Maya's eyes softened. You're the one who stood up when it mattered. Henry shook his head. Took me too long. Lucas looked between them. I think we were all scared. But not anymore. That evening, after the staff had gone and the lights had dimmed, Maya walked into the garden. The grass was still wet from the storm. She followed the stone path until she reached the oak tree. The same tree where she had once sat bleeding and alone. Now, everything was still. Peaceful. She looked up at the branches and took a deep breath. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about winning. It was about finally being free. Footsteps crunched behind her. I thought I'd find you here, Lucas said. She turned. Just needed a minute, she whispered. He nodded and stood beside her. You know, I used to think this house ran like a machine. Perfect and quiet. But I never asked what it cost the people keeping it running. She looked at him. And now? He smiled faintly. Now I know the strongest person in this house was sitting right here all along. Maya smiled back. I wasn't trying to be strong. I just didn't have another choice. Lucas reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object wrapped in cloth. He unwrapped it slowly. A tiny ceramic figure. Cracked, but beautiful. My mother gave this to me when I was 10, he said. I broke it once. Hid it from her for weeks, afraid she'd be angry. What did she say? Maya asked softly. She said, things break, Lucas. That's how we know they're real. He met her eyes. I think people are the same. Her breath caught. He placed the little figurine in her hand. Keep it. A reminder that not everything broken stays broken. Maya looked down at it, her fingers brushing his. Thank you, she whispered. They stood together beneath the oak tree, quiet and still, as the last rays of sunlight faded into gold. Behind the estate, the air carried a quiet peace. For the first time, Maya didn't feel like the help. She felt like someone who finally belonged. The kitchen had always been a place of noise, the clatter of pots, the hum of voices, the steady rush of running water. For years, Maya had moved through this space like a shadow, silent, quick, invisible. Now, as she stepped into the staff kitchen, not as a servant, but as someone with a voice, the chatter stopped. Janet and Carla were slicing fruit for the next day's breakfast trays. They both looked up when Maya walked in. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then Carla smiled and said, "Miss Maya, coffee's fresh if you'd like some." "Thank you," Maya replied softly, setting her tablet on the counter. "Don't mind me, just doing a walkthrough." She moved along the pantry shelves, checking inventory tags and expiration dates. It was a simple task, but before now, it had never been hers. Eleanor used to handle all kitchen audits alone, always with harsh words instead of guidance. Maya handled it differently. She leaned toward Carla. "Have you had any issues with late deliveries? I noticed we're short on eggs again." Carla shrugged. "Happens once or twice a month. Eleanor used to say it was our fault, that someone was stealing extras for home." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Was that true?" Janet laughed. "Not unless someone's feeding a family of 12 with one pocket." The three of them chuckled, and the tension in the room broke. Maya tapped a quick note on her tablet. "I'll talk to the supplier, and from now on, no one gets blamed without proof." Janet tilted her head. Strange hearing that from someone who used to get blamed first. Maya smiled faintly. Strange saying it too. But things are different now. In the hallway outside, Lucas stood watching through the small glass panel on the door. He hadn't meant to stop, but something about the sight caught him. Maya standing there, speaking softly, not giving orders, not showing off. She was simply leading. She hadn't changed herself. She had just found her place. He turned and continued down the hall. There was still more to do. That afternoon, Maya met Lucas in the study, now turned into their shared office for estate work. She carried 2 folders, one for kitchen reports, another for maintenance delays. Lucas was bent over financial documents on a second monitor. "How's the kitchen?" he asked without looking up. "Lighter," she said. "Less fear, more fruit." He chuckled. "We'll call that progress." She handed him the files. "We also need to talk about Janet. She's been doing double shifts. She won't admit it, but she's limping." Lucas frowned as he read. "We'll cut her hours by 20% and raise her pay." Maya blinked. "That's generous." "Generosity," he said, eyes still on the papers, "isn't charity. It's responsibility." Maya's nodded slowly. The words stayed with her. Lucas looked up after a moment. "You're good at this, Maya." "I'm just doing what should have been done all along." He studied her face. "That's exactly what most people forget. The simple things that matter until they stop happening." By late afternoon, the house had fallen quiet again. Maya wandered into the formal sitting room, a place she used to avoid. Once, she'd sat there, eating quietly while Eleanor whispered behind her back, saying the smell of bleach clung to her skin. Now she sat on the velvet settee and looked out the window. The oak tree in the garden stood tall and strong, scarred but beautiful. Her phone buzzed. A message from Carla. "Just wanted to say thank you again. It feels like we can breathe now." Maya smiled and typed back. "We all deserve air. No one should have to ask for it." She leaned back, letting the sunlight fall across her face. That evening, Lucas joined the staff at dinner. The surprise on their faces was almost comical. He sat at the long table, sleeves rolled up, laughing softly as Carla told a story about a kitchen mishap. The meal was simple: roasted chicken, steamed greens, and cornbread. But the air felt lighter. Henry laughed so hard at one of Carla's jokes that water spilled from his glass. Lucas smiled, not with authority, but with ease. Maya caught him watching the others. His brow creased slightly, not in frustration, but in thought. The look of a man finally learning to listen. After dinner, as the staff cleared the table, Lucas turned to her. "I've been thinking," he said. "We should start a monthly meeting with the staff, not just updates, real conversations." Maya raised an eyebrow. "You ready for that?" He smiled a little. "I'm ready to hear what I should have heard years ago." When the evening ended, Lucas walked her to the door. The air was cool but calm, the stars sharp above them. The storm clouds were long gone. "Thank you, Maya," he said softly. "For what?" she asked. "For not quitting when I gave you every reason to." She looked up, her expression calm but firm. "I didn't stay for you, Lucas." He nodded. "I know. I stayed because people like Eleanor don't get to decide where I belong." He swallowed hard, emotion caught in his throat. "I'll see you tomorrow," she said with a faint smile. Then she stepped out into the night, walking steady and sure, no longer a woman sitting under the rain, but one walking into her own light. The next morning arrived with a crisp chill. Lucas stood by his bedroom window, coffee in hand. Outside, the oak tree's leaves were turning gold and orange, fading into the colors of change. Even the garden seemed to be waking differently. His thoughts drifted, as they often did now, to Maya. For the past week, she'd arrived every morning at 7 sharp. Not rushed, not timid, just calm. The staff respected her now. She didn't demand it. She earned it quietly. But today, Lucas had something different planned. He set down his mug, put on his jacket, and walked down a hallway that few entered anymore. At the very end was a door he hadn't opened in years. Polished oak, brass handle, untouched since his mother's passing. He hesitated, then turned the key. The hinges creaked softly. Sunlight cut through the dust in long, golden lines. The air smelled faintly of old books and time. A leather armchair sat beneath an oil painting of his grandmother. Shelves lined the walls with his mother's medical journals and charity notes. On a side table sat a photograph, a younger version of her holding him as a child, smiling with pride. He stood there quietly, his heartbeat slow and heavy. This room had been her space, her sanctuary. He had kept it closed for years, unable to face the memories. But now, something in him had shifted. It was time to open it again. He pulled out his phone and sent a message. "Meet me at the East Hall. Bring your planner. I have an idea." When Maya arrived, she slowed at the doorway. The hall was quiet, filled with the soft scent of dust and books. Lucas was already there, sleeves rolled up, wiping the shelves with a cloth. "I've never been down here," she said softly. "Most people haven't," he replied. He gestured for her to come in. "This was my mother's room. She was a nurse. This is where she used to read, plan, and write letters." Maya looked around, eyes tracing the shelves and the small notes still tucked between books. "It feels alive," she whispered. Lucas nodded. "I want it to live again. I don't want it to just be a memory." "What do you want it to become?" she asked. He thought for a moment. A wellness room for the staff, a place to rest, to read, to breathe, maybe a small resource center, something that gives back. Maya blinked in surprise. "That's wonderful," he smiled. "I was hoping you'd help design it. You understand what people here actually need better than anyone." She hesitated, touched. "I'd be honored." They stood in the middle of the room, two people surrounded by history, ready to build something new from it. Later that afternoon, Maya returned to her small office. The hum of life filled the halls. Footsteps, clinking dishes, doors opening and closing. She sat at her desk, trying to focus on scheduling and budgets, but her thoughts kept drifting to that room. For the first time, the estate felt alive. Just before lunch, Carla came in carrying 2 mugs of coffee and a plate with croissants. "You don't have to do that," Maya said. "I know," Carla grinned. "But I like that you eat now." Maya laughed softly. "Thanks." Carla sat on the edge of her desk. "You know, a few months ago, none of us thought you'd last here. Not because you weren't good, but because this house didn't let people like us stay." Maya looked at her. "And now?" Carla smiled. "Now we're starting to believe maybe we can. Maybe we belong here too." Those words stayed with Maya long after Carla left. That evening, Lucas walked in the garden, hands in his coat pockets. The night sky shimmered with faint stars above the oak. He stood there quietly, lost in thought. Then he heard footsteps. Light. Familiar. Maya appeared beside him, holding a folder. "I finished the outline," she said, "for the wellness room." He took the file and opened it carefully. Inside were pages filled with her ideas. Warm lights, soft chairs, journals for writing, a small library, even lists of affordable counselors. Each detail reflected compassion. "This is more than I expected," he said quietly. "It's what I would have needed," she replied. "A year ago, 5 years ago." He looked at her. "When I hired you, I didn't even remember your name." Maya smiled faintly. "That's all right. You see me now." "I do," he said, voice low. "And now I don't want to look away." Her smile faded, not in rejection, but understanding. "Then don't." He stepped closer, not touching her, not pushing, just standing near enough for the silence to say what words couldn't. "I won't," he whispered. They stood beneath the oak tree, the same one that had once sheltered pain. Now, it held peace. No rain, no lies, only truth. The weekend brought guests, but this time, not the loud, champagne-filled kind. These were quieter visitors, old colleagues, a couple from his university days, and Dr. Russell Ames, a gray-haired philanthropist who had once worked with Lucas's mother. The estate glowed again. Fresh flowers in the halls, polished floors, calm energy. But beneath the beauty, Maya felt a familiar tension creeping back. Early Saturday, Carla hurried up to her, holding a folded napkin. "They're already asking questions," she whispered. One of them wanted to know if the new girl was the help, or the help's boss. Maya folded her arms. "And what did you say?" Carla grinned. "I said, she's the reason this house still stands." Maya laughed under her breath. "Remind me to give you a raise when I have that kind of power." "You already do," Carla said, tapping her shoulder. "You just don't see it yet." Later that morning, Lucas found Maya in the East Wing, straightening her notes. "Our guests will stay till Monday," he said, adjusting his cufflinks. "Ames and his wife are in the main suite, the Clarks in the north rooms. I want comfort, but no show." Maya nodded. "Already done. I reviewed their preferences. Everything's set." He hesitated before adding, "Eleanor used to keep a guest log. I'd like you to restart it. Not just names, impressions, notes. We should know the kind of people we let into this house." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Sounds like surveillance." He smiled faintly. "Not surveillance. Context. We've trusted too many masks in this house." Maya nodded slowly. Then let's make sure this house never wears one again. Lucas's words still echoed in the quiet study. I'd rather not make that mistake again. Maya only nodded, her face calm but her thoughts deep. Later that day, she walked the long corridors of the Harding estate with her notebook pressed against her chest. She wasn't rushing. Her steps were steady, her eyes sharp. She had learned long ago that real power didn't shout. It whispered, and most people never heard it. From behind a half-open door, she caught Mrs. Ames's voice, smooth, sharp, and full of judgment. No, she's not staff anymore. Something happened here. Some scandal. Lucas never said, but it's obvious. He's letting her roam like she owns the place. There was a pause, then a lower tone. I'm not saying she's dangerous, but people like that, when they're given power too quickly, it changes everything. Maya stood still. Her grip on the notebook tightened, the pages bending slightly. She didn't speak, didn't move. Only the sound of her slow breathing filled the space. She had heard worse before, but somehow this time, it stung differently. That night, once the guests had settled and dinner had been cleared away, Lucas asked her to meet him in the study. He sat on the edge of the sofa, reading a report from Dr. Ames's foundation. When she entered, he looked up, eyes tired but alert. How's the temperature out there? He asked quietly. Cool, she said. And controlled. He tilted his head. Meaning? Meaning Mrs. Ames thinks I'm the wrong kind of story. His eyebrows pulled together. You heard her? I did, Maya said. He sighed, folding the paper carefully. I should have guessed. It's all right, she replied softly. People like her don't scare me anymore. They scare me, he said after a pause, standing and walking toward the fireplace. Because they never see the damage they do. They hide behind donations and polite smiles, and no one calls them out. He turned back to her. You don't need me to protect you, but I will. Not because you're weak, but because they are. Maya met his gaze, calm but firm. I don't need you to fight for me, Lucas. Just don't let them twist the truth when I'm not around to speak it. He nodded slowly. Deal. The next morning, Dr. Ames requested a tour of the estate. Lucas decided Maya would lead it. Are you sure? She asked. You know this place better than anyone, he said. And honestly, I want them to see who's running things now. Maya guided the guests through each hall with quiet confidence. Her words were simple, but her tone carried weight. She spoke of repairs, of history, of people. Not as if she were reciting notes, but as if she had lived every moment of it. When they reached the new wellness room, once, Lucas's mother's private retreat, she stopped at the doorway. This was Mrs. Harding's reading room, she said gently. Now it's a wellness space for the staff, somewhere they can breathe and rest. Dr. Ames lifted an eyebrow. Staff wellness? Lucas stepped beside her, his voice cool. A house is only as strong as the people who keep it standing. We've started treating them like people. Shocking, I know. The silence that followed was sharp but short. Dr. Ames finally nodded once. Progressive, he said. Long overdue. Maya didn't smile. She didn't need to. The moment spoke for itself. That night, Lucas found her sitting beneath the oak tree again. She wasn't hiding this time, just thinking. The moonlight broke gently through the leaves above them. I used to be afraid of this tree, she said. It felt like the place you went when you didn't belong inside. Lucas looked up at the branches. And now? Now it's where I come to remember how far I've come. He nodded. Funny, isn't it? A place doesn't have to change to mean something new. She glanced at him, a faint smile crossing her face. The house hasn't changed, Lucas. You have. I'm trying, he said. You're doing, she replied. They sat quietly, listening to the night wind brush through the leaves. Inside, the house hummed softly, but out here, everything was still. The world felt smaller, safer. The kind of silence that spoke more than words ever could. Monday morning brought fog that wrapped around the estate like held breath. The guests had left just after sunrise. Lucas made sure of it. Maya stood in the kitchen with her tea, reading a note from Carla. They're gone. Left early. No hugs. She smiled. Carla always knew how to turn bitterness into poetry. 2 hours later, a courier arrived at the gates with a sealed envelope. Security brought it straight to Lucas. He opened it in silence, read the pages once, and then pressed the intercom. Maya, my office, now. When she entered, he stood by the window, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a folded sheet of heavy paper. His jaw was tight. What is it? She asked. He turned and handed her the paper. It was a formal notice. An inquiry from the Ames Foundation. The language was polite, almost sweet, but the message beneath it was poison. They were questioning her promotion, hinting at bias and conflict of interest. Maya's eyes darkened as she read. They're trying to discredit you. And you, he added. She steadied her breath. What do we do? We respond, he said. With facts. With truth. And a reminder that I don't take orders from anyone's comfort zone. She lowered the page. They're not used to someone like me sitting at the table. They'll get used to it. No, she said softly. They won't. But we're not here to make them comfortable. He looked at her, really, looked. There was no fear in her face, only resolve. I've been thinking, he said, about putting your name on the foundation's papers, as co-chair. Her breath caught. That's not necessary. It is, he said, because I didn't rebuild this alone. The future should tell the truth. She hesitated. You know what people will say. They already said it, he replied. But you've earned this. They can't erase that unless you let them. Maya stared at the document. The weight of the moment pressed against her chest. It wasn't just a title. It was recognition. For every long night, every silence she had swallowed, every piece of herself she'd hidden just to survive. Finally, she said quietly, then write it down. Maya Williams, co-chair. The announcement was subtle. Just a note on the staff board, a small update on the estate records. But whispers spread faster than truth. By Tuesday morning, calls began. Lucas ignored most of them. His lawyer called once. It's not illegal, the man said. Just provocative. Good, Lucas replied. It's time to provoke a few people. Maya kept her head down, working as usual, but the echoes came anyway. Anonymous messages slipped into the inbox. You're turning the Harding name into a joke. Some people should stay in their place. She read them once, calmly, then tucked them into a folder on her desk titled, Unsent Invitations. Carla handled it differently. She taped a handwritten sign to the staff kitchen door. If you don't like the changes, there's the door. It's unlocked. By the end of the week, the house felt lighter again. Lucas and Maya sat beneath the oak tree, a folder of papers between them. No legal threats this time, he said with a small grin. Just numbers. She opened it. Scholarship proposals. Single parents. Workers. People who never got second chances. This is bold, she said. It's overdue, he replied. She looked at him for a long moment. You're not afraid anymore. I am, he said honestly. But I'm done letting fear decide the height of my ceiling. She smiled faintly and closed the folder. You know, I used to dream about running away from this place. Now I dream about what it could be. Then we'll build that, he said. That night, Maya walked past the guest room where she had once been turned away. She opened the door and stood inside. The air felt different now. Still, but kind. I'm still here, she whispered. And in that quiet, it almost felt like the walls whispered back, we know. Days later, Lucas and Maya walked through the gallery hall together. A long corridor filled with portraits of every Harding who had ever lived. Stern faces in golden frames, all watching from the walls. Maya slowed her steps. These are all Hardings? Lucas nodded. Everyone. My grandfather, great-grandfather, uncles. My mother's portrait used to hang, here too, but Eleanor thought it looked too modern. It's in storage. Maya gave a small, dry laugh. Of course. He stopped midway down the hall. You know what they all have in common? She tilted her head. Power? He shook his head. Silence. No journals, no letters, just faces, no stories. You're changing that, she said. He looked down the hall, voice low. I want this house to speak again. Loudly. Honestly. At the far end, one section of a wall was bare, marked only by a brass plaque reading Reserved. Maya touched it lightly. What's this for? It was meant for the next Harding heir, he said. I don't have children, so it's been waiting. She turned to him. Maybe it doesn't have to be blood. He studied her face. Go on. You're building something new here, she said softly. A family. Not by name, but by choice. What if this wall told their stories instead? Not just who you're born to, but who helped you rebuild. He gave a short breath, something between a laugh and a sigh. You mean, put your picture here? She smiled. Not mine, theirs. Carla, Henry, Janet. The real heartbeat of this house. Lucas smiled back, shaking his head. That might upset a few board members. Good, she said simply. Later that afternoon, Lucas sat with Henry in the study. They both held steaming mugs of coffee. You've been here 21 years, Lucas said. You've seen everything. Henry chuckled. Too much, sir. Some of it I wish I'd spoken about sooner. Ever think about leaving? Plenty, Henry said. But there was always someone worth staying for. First your mother, then the garden. Now Maya. Lucas looked down at his cup. I should have noticed earlier. Henry gave a slow nod. Better late than never. She wants to make a wall of honor, Lucas said. For the staff. To remember who really kept this place alive. Henry blinked, his eyes glistening. Then he laughed softly. Well, I'll be damned. Never thought my old face would hang next to a Harding. It's about time, Lucas said. Meanwhile, Maya had started interviewing everyone. Not for performance, but for memories. She sat with Janet in the laundry room, the air warm with the scent of clean cotton. How long have you been here? Maya asked. 14 years, Janet said. Started right after my husband died. This job kept me going. What do you want people to remember about you? Janet smiled faintly. That I folded the cleanest sheets east of the Hudson, and that I tried to be kind, even when it was hard. Maya nodded, writing it down. That's going on the wall. Piece by piece, the new portrait wall began to form. Lucas cleared the space, ordered the frames, and let Maya choose the first 5 names. The people who had carried the house long before anyone noticed. And for the first time in the Harding estate's long history, the walls didn't just display power. They told the truth. It started with Henry, Carla, Janet, Rosa, the cook, and old Mr. Leonard, the estate driver who had retired 3 years earlier but still visited every Sunday. Each portrait was simple, black and white, no makeup, no fancy poses, just faces, and one line beneath, the words they had chosen themselves. Carla's read, "I stayed to make noise, not to be quiet." Henry's, "Every seed I planted here grew something bigger than I expected." Maya's photo wasn't up yet. She wasn't ready. That night, Lucas found her in the archive room, surrounded by dusty boxes and fading photographs Eleanor had locked away. Maya sat cross-legged on the floor, sorting through them carefully, her fingers brushing the past as if it might break. She looked up when he entered. "I found your mother's portrait," she said softly, lifting a photo framed in thin silver. The image showed a woman seated in the old reading room, sunlight falling across her cheek, a book resting in her lap. Lucas stepped closer, his hand almost trembling as he took it from her. "I haven't seen this since her funeral," he murmured. His voice cracked just a little. "She deserves her place back on the wall," Maya said. "She does," he agreed quietly, then looked at her. "So do you." Maya shook her head with a faint smile. "Not yet." He didn't argue. Instead, he reached into one of the open boxes labeled Letters M.H. Inside were dozens of envelopes, the paper yellowed, the ink fading. Some were unopened. He handed one to Maya. She unfolded it slowly. It was a letter from Lucas's mother to a young patient, handwritten, tender, full of warmth. The final line read, "Even when you're scared, keep your eyes open. That's how you'll see who's walking beside you." Maya folded it carefully and handed it back. "She knew," she said. Lucas nodded, eyes glistening. "She knew everything. I'm only just learning now." They sat together in silence, surrounded by boxes of forgotten history. The future of the Harding house was quietly forming in those shadows, two people rebuilding not just a legacy, but a truth. By morning, the portraits would be hung, and this time the walls wouldn't whisper. They would finally speak. It was just past 7 a.m. when Maya opened the front doors. The sky was still gray, the grass silver with dew, the air cool and quiet. She bent to pick up the morning paper, more out of habit than need. Lucas had moved everything online, but she liked the feel of real paper, the sound it made when folded. Today, though, the headline stopped her cold. "Scandal in Service. Harding Estates' Rapid Rise of Former Maid Raises Eyebrows." She froze on the stone steps, the breeze brushing her arms. Her name appeared twice before the third paragraph. She didn't read further. She didn't have to. She could already hear the tone in her head, the soft cruelty hidden under polite concern, the same tired suspicion dressed up as curiosity. A photo accompanied it, her leaving the gates on foot, likely taken weeks ago. She looked tired in it. Of course she did. Maya folded the paper, carried it inside, and set it face down on the entry table. Then she went to find Lucas. He was in the study, coffee in hand, scanning his emails. The moment she entered, he looked up. "You saw it?" "I did." He set his cup down. "I'm sorry, Maya. I should have known they'd push it this far." She crossed her arms, not angry, just weary. "Who leaked it?" "Someone at the Ames Foundation, most likely," he said. "It's coordinated. Nothing official yet, just whispers. But this makes it public." "And the board?" she asked. "I called an emergency meeting. They're nervous, but not pulling support yet." She studied him. "You don't look nervous." "I'm not," he said quietly. "I'm angry." She stepped closer. "Lucas, I don't need you to fight my battles." "I know," he said, meeting her eyes. "I'm fighting ours now." He picked up a folder from the desk and handed it to her. Our response. She opened it and read the first few lines aloud. Transparency is not a scandal. Progress is not corruption. And power, when shared, doesn't lose its worth. It multiplies it. She looked up, surprised. You wrote this? With help, he said. Henry helped draft it. Said you wouldn't sign off unless you could hear your own voice in it. A faint smile touched her lips. He knows me too well. Lucas turned toward the fireplace, his hand resting on the mantel. They're going to keep coming, Maya. You know that. She nodded slowly. Then let them come. Later that morning, Maya sat at her desk as her phone buzzed non-stop with messages. Carla entered, holding a cup of coffee and a pastry wrapped in a napkin. You holding up? Carla asked. Barely. You want me to go yell at someone downtown? I'll wear my church heels, Carla said, half serious. Maya let out a short laugh. No war crimes today, Carla. But thank you. Carla perched on the desk. You knew something like this would happen, didn't you? I did, Maya said. I just didn't know it would feel like this. Carla's voice softened. You're not some name they can twist around, Maya. You're proof the old rules don't work anymore. Maya looked at the folded paper on the desk. Sometimes I wonder if I should have stayed quiet. Let it stay just a job, not a statement. Too late for that, Carla said. You made us believe we could stand taller. You don't get to unring that bell now. By afternoon, messages began arriving from everywhere. Former staff, neighbors, even teachers from Joshua's school. Some were just one line. I see her. I believe her. I'm glad she stayed. Maya read every one, tears slipping down her face before she could stop them. That evening, Lucas held a press conference in the estate gardens. Only a few reporters stood in the rain, but the live stream reached thousands. Maya stood beside him, not behind him. Lucas began, his voice steady. This estate has survived wars and losses, but the thing that nearly destroyed it was silence. Silence about who we are and who we owe. That silence ends today. He motioned toward Maya. This woman helped rebuild this house, not with bricks or paint, but with truth and discipline. She earned every role she holds, not through favor, but through fire. Maya stepped forward. No podium, no script. She looked straight into the camera and spoke from the heart. You don't have to believe in me. Believe in the people who clean your floors, raise your children, cook your meals. Because when you ignore them, you ignore the ground you stand on. When the stream ended, the small crowd applauded. Softly at first, then louder. Inside, Henry placed the morning's newspaper next to the stack of new staff portraits. Without a word, he tore the front page in half, folded it backward, and tucked it beneath Maya's framed quote. We all deserve air, he said quietly. No one should have to ask for it. Let them write what they want. This house remembers better. Overnight, rain began to fall. A slow, steady drizzle that softened everything it touched. Maya woke early to the sound of water tapping her window. There was something heavy in the air. Not sadness, not quite fear, just the weight of change. By 8, Lucas called her to the study. He sat at the desk, his hair damp, a sealed envelope in front of him. You all right? She asked. He nodded once. I need to show you something. She sat down, and he slid the envelope across. I found this in one of Eleanor's old cabinets. It's my mother's original will, not the version the board filed. Maya froze. What does it say? Lucas took a breath. It names me, of course, but there's more. It mentions a trust fund, a quiet one, for the staff. Maya blinked. A trust? He nodded. She left instructions to create a wellness and education fund for anyone who worked here more than 5 years. Henry, Janet, Rosa, even the retirees. Maya stared at the papers. Why didn't anyone know? Because Eleanor hid it, Lucas said bitterly. She replaced it with a new version, one that erased the staff's names completely. Said it was better for the estate. Maya clenched her fists. She stole their futures. She did, Lucas said. But I'm going to fix it. He pulled out a notepad filled with handwritten plans. I've already spoken to my lawyer. We're re-establishing the fund exactly how my mother wrote it. Retroactive. Every name included. Maya's throat tightened. They have no idea what this will mean for their families. They will, Lucas said, his voice thick. I need you to help me tell them. This isn't charity, it's correction. She nodded. It's justice. By late afternoon, Maya gathered the senior staff in the east parlor. Rain tapped softly against the tall windows. Henry, Carla, Janet, and the others sat waiting, unsure but curious. Lucas entered quietly behind her. Maya began. We found something that belonged to Lucas's mother. Lucas stepped forward, holding the original will. This should have been shared years ago, he said. It was written to honor the people who built this house, not just the ones who owned it. He paused, his eyes scanning the room. My mother believed the staff should share in the estate's growth. She wanted your children to go to school without worry, your medical bills covered, your retirements peaceful. That was her wish. The room fell silent. Henry rubbed his eyes. Carla whispered, Lord, have mercy. Janet sat still, whispering, She saw us, even when no one else did. Maya smiled softly. She saw you, and now everyone will. Lucas continued, his voice steady. Each of you who's served 5 years or more will receive a letter explaining your benefits. Education grants, wellness, coverage, housing assistance if needed. This isn't generosity. It's overdue. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Henry said quietly, If I'd known this all those years. Lucas asked, You would have stayed? Henry shook his head. I would have believed more. Believed we mattered. After the meeting, Maya remained in the empty room, hand resting on the mantel. The fire crackled softly. Justice rarely arrived in envelopes. But tonight, it had. Lucas joined her, his expression thoughtful. She wrote it because she knew I might forget. Said if it wasn't written down, I'd get lost in the noise. You didn't forget, Maya said gently. I almost did, he admitted. Until you reminded me how to listen again. They stood together in silence, the flames painting gold across the portraits on the wall. So what now? She asked. Now, Lucas said, we rebuild the board. We shift the power. We protect the people who've always protected this house. And your legacy? He smiled faintly. My legacy is what they carry when I'm gone. Not what's carved in stone, but what's lived. That evening, Carla found Maya in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup. You okay? She asked. Maya looked up, her face calm, almost peaceful. I think I'm finally catching up with myself. Carla chuckled. You ever gonna put your picture up on that wall? Maya smirked. Maybe when I've earned it. Carla laughed. Girl, you earned it twice already. My mama used to say, justice doesn't always knock loud. Sometimes it's just soup on the stove and people finally sitting at the same table. Maya smiled, ladling the soup into bowls. Then we'll make sure everyone's served. Outside, the rain kept falling, soft and steady. Inside, the house felt alive again, its walls no longer heavy with silence, but humming with memory warmth, and change. The 34th floor of the Harding Global downtown office had once been Lucas's battlefield, a place of glass, order, and power. The floors gleamed, the walls shone with portraits of founders long gone, and the view of Manhattan stretched out like a reward for those who survived the climb. It was a room built to make others feel small. But that morning, it wasn't the skyline or the height that held everyone's attention. It was Maya Williams, seated beside Lucas Harding, her name freshly engraved on the brass plaque before her. Maya Williams, co-chair. The boardroom filled slowly, the air thick with perfume and power. The members shuffled in, gray-haired men and women in perfect suits, people who had dined with Lucas's parents and voted on every Harding decision for decades. A few nodded politely to Maya, but most pretended she wasn't there. She sat still, calm, hands folded on the polished table. Her silence was stronger than their stares. Lucas stood, buttoning his jacket. His voice was even, but his eyes were sharp. "Thank you for joining on short notice. We have two matters today, one financial, one moral." That last word made a few heads turn. Margaret Ellison, the board chairwoman, adjusted her glasses and said dryly, "We've reviewed the article, Lucas. Damage control is already in motion." "I'm not here for damage control," he replied. His tone was clipped, unshaken. "I'm here for truth correction." A murmur spread across the long table. Someone coughed. Lucas didn't stop. For decades, this board has treated Harding Global and the Harding estate as separate empires. But they're not. What happens in that house echoes through every project we fund, every press release, every check we sign. He reached into a folder and pulled out a copy of his mother's original will. This document was hidden, deliberately, its contents erased before you all approved the final version. Margaret's eyes narrowed. "That's a serious accusation." "It's not an accusation," Maya said suddenly, her voice clear and steady. Every head turned toward her, surprised at her interruption. "It's a fact." She leaned forward, her tone calm but firm. "That will included a trust fund. Money set aside for the estate staff, a redistribution based on service, not bloodline. Eleanor Harding removed it, and knowingly or not, this board signed off on that removal." The silence was heavy. The rain tapping against the glass windows was the only sound. Finally, Mr. Callahan, a thin man with a tired face, cleared his throat. "Let's assume, for the sake of discussion, that you're right. What are you proposing?" Lucas didn't hesitate. "We reinstate the Harding Staff Trust Fund, retroactively, fully funded, and we make it public. We tell the truth." Ellison scoffed. "Do you realize what that will do to our reputation with legacy donors? They don't like—" "If your donors pull funding, because the staff finally got treated like human beings," Maya interrupted, her gaze steady, "then maybe they don't deserve to have their names on our buildings." Ellison stiffened, her lips thin. Lucas stepped in before she could reply. "She's right. We don't need investors who fear fairness. And let me make this clear. If the board refuses this motion, I'll dissolve Harding Global. I'll walk away from the name, the title, all of it. And the world will know why." The room erupted in whispers and panic. Some protested under their breath. Others stared at Lucas in disbelief. But no one could deny the finality in his voice. Maya sat quietly, watching their power unravel. Not through chaos, but through choice. Lucas sat down again, folded his hands and said, "Let's vote." The results came quickly. 7 in favor, 4 opposed, 2 abstaining. The motion passed. Maya exhaled slowly, her hands steady as she gathered her notes. Lucas closed his folder, calm but clearly relieved. The meeting ended in uneasy silence, board members leaving one by one. Lorraine Beckett, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and soft eyes, paused beside Maya's chair. "I didn't vote for you," she said quietly. "But I was wrong. You remind me of someone I worked for once. She got fired for being too honest." Maya gave a small nod. "Then I hope she'd be proud of you for staying in the room this time." Lorraine blinked, smiled faintly, and walked away. In the elevator, Maya finally let out a breath she'd been holding since morning. Lucas leaned back against the mirrored wall, watching her. "What?" she asked. He smiled. "You were terrifying." She laughed softly. "So were you." "No," he said. "I was angry. You were unstoppable." She shrugged, still catching her breath. "We're not done yet." "Not even close," he agreed. Back at the estate, the air smelled of peaches and sugar. Carla had baked a cobbler, her stress ritual. The kitchen was warm, full of laughter and exhaustion. "How'd it go?" she asked, sliding a slice onto a plate. "We won," Maya said simply. Carla froze mid-motion. "Wait, really? Like, we actually won?" "The trust is back," Maya said. "Lucas put everything on the line for it." Carla blinked, then grinned. "Well, I guess we're not in the servants' quarters anymore." Maya laughed, but then went quiet, looking down at her hands. "I don't know how to live like this yet." Carla placed a hand on her shoulder. "You'll learn. Just don't forget how to live like that either." She pointed out the window, where the garden glistened with rain. Maya nodded. "I won't." That night, the house was silent. Maya walked barefoot through the hallways, fingertips brushing the walls, the railing, the framed portraits. When she reached the gallery, she stopped. Her own portrait hung beside Henry's, Carla's, and Janet's. Beneath it, her chosen words were carved into brass. "Power is not what you inherit. It's what you survive." She whispered to the still air, "We're still here." For once, the house seemed to whisper back, not with ghosts, but with belonging. Rain fell again the next morning, a steady hum against the windows. The front gates had shorted out, and Henry was outside fixing them while Carla chased muddy footprints with a mop. "These gates are older than the fireplace," Carla muttered. Maya barely heard her. She was staring at her phone. A voicemail from Detective Selena Voss. "We found new information about Eleanor Harding's estate filings. There's an irregularity. I think you'll want to hear this in person." By noon, Maya and Lucas sat in Voss's small office downtown. The detective didn't bother with pleasantries. A former accountant from the Harding estate came forward. He found a private ledger. Off the books. Expenses, payouts, donations. "Take a look." She slid the papers across the desk. The handwriting was precise and familiar. Lucas scanned the pages. "What kind of payouts?" "Unrecorded ones," Voss said. "Some tied to staff settlements, others questionable." Maya leaned in. Her eyes moved down the columns. Names she recognized. Janet, Rosa, Henry. Then one entry froze her. March 12, 2017. $40,000. Staff settlement. Maya W. Note. Silence clause signed. Her pulse quickened. "That's impossible. I never signed anything like that. And I never received a dime." "That's why this matters," Voss said. "This payment only exists on paper. It was probably used to justify blocking your promotions or discrediting you if anyone ever questioned it." Lucas's jaw tightened. "So she planned this. She buried you in a lie before you even had the chance to rise," Voss said. By the time they returned to the estate, Thunder rolled across the sky. Maya moved through the halls like a ghost, her thoughts a storm of their own. Every cold look, every withheld compliment from Eleanor, it all made sense now. Not resistance. Sabotage. Lucas followed her into the study. "We go public with this," he said. Maya stopped. "No," he frowned. "Oh. If we go public now, it'll look like revenge. I don't want revenge, Lucas. I want reclamation." He tilted his head. "So, what do we do?" "We show them the truth." Through her own words. She moved quickly toward the library. Lucas followed, puzzled. "Her journals?" "Yes. She wrote everything down." Maya pulled a small brass key from her pocket and led him to a hidden panel behind the tall bookshelf. She'd found it months ago, but never knew what it opened. Inside was a wooden cabinet, stacked neatly with more than 40 leather-bound journals, Eleanor's handwriting on each spine. Maya's voice was calm but heavy. "If there's any truth left in this house, it's in here." They sat on the floor, reading by firelight as rain lashed the windows. The journals revealed a mind both brilliant and afraid. Eleanor feared losing control of the estate, of Lucas, of her own legacy. In one passage, Eleanor had written, "Maya Williams watches everything. Reminds me of Margaret before she left. There's steel in that girl. The kind you can't own. You can only delay." Lucas closed the journal softly. "She was afraid of you," he said quietly. Maya stared at the fire. "No. She was afraid of being forgotten." That night, she gathered the staff in the garden under the old oak tree. The rain had stopped, and the air smelled like earth and new beginnings. She held the ledger in one hand, the journal in the other. "I found something today," she said. "Something that tried to write my story before I could live it. I won't let anyone else decide what I stood for." She placed the ledger into the fire pit and struck a match. The flames rose, steady and clean. No drama, no speeches, just truth burning free. Lucas stood beside her. "What about the rest?" Maya looked up at the stars barely visible through the clouds. "We keep the truth, and we tell it slowly, our way." As the fire faded, the ashes lifted into the night. The wind carried them upward like ghosts finding peace. By dawn, the house was quiet again. Maya walked the east wing hallway, barefoot, a cup of coffee in her hand. The walls were lined with soft light, the air still. For the first time in weeks, she felt something close to peace. But silence, she'd learned, didn't always mean the story was over. A faint sound broke her thoughts. A shuffle. A tiny whimper. She turned and saw a small shadow duck into the corner near the old service door. "Hello?" she called gently. No answer. She crouched down, peering closer. "You don't have to hide." Slowly, a little boy stepped out, curly-haired, maybe 5 years old, in an oversized dinosaur shirt. His cheeks were wet from tears. He held out a crumpled drawing. Maya's heart softened. "Hey there," she said. "Are you lost?" He sniffled and handed her the paper. 2 stick figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun. One wore a green dress, the other had orange hair. She recognized it. It was from the Foundation's Foster Transition Program, drawn by a boy named Daniel. "Is your name Daniel?" she asked. He nodded, rubbing his eyes. "Where's your caretaker?" He pointed down the hall. "Sleeping loud," he said seriously. Maya bit back a smile. "That happens sometimes." He studied her face, then whispered shyly, "You're the nice lady." Maya knelt lower, her voice gentle. "I try to be." And for the first time in a long while, the house felt whole again. Not because of wealth or titles, but because, somewhere in its walls, a new story had just begun. Maya looked at the little boy, his curls messy, his eyes bright even through tears. "Have we met before?" she asked, softly. Daniel shook his head. "No, but they said you fixed the house." Half an hour later, Lucas found them in the sunroom. Daniel was curled in Maya's lap, his drawing clutched in one tiny fist. Maya's voice was calm and gentle as she told a story about a giraffe who wanted to fly. Lucas stopped in the doorway, watching. For a moment, he forgot how to breathe. "You found him," he said quietly. Maya looked up. He was hiding by the service door. His caretaker said the snoring scared him. Lucas smiled. "I should have warned you. He's famous for escaping nap time." "And for drawing sunshine," Maya added, holding up the wrinkled page. Lucas crouched beside them. His voice softened. "He's been through a lot. His mother died last year. His father wasn't safe." Maya nodded, brushing a curl off Daniel's forehead. "And now he's here." "For now," Lucas said. "The foundation wants to expand. Maybe build a real child transition wing. Daniel might just be the first." Maya looked down at the boy sleeping against her chest. "He thought I fixed the house," she whispered. Lucas smiled faintly. "Didn't you?" "No," she said. "Maybe he did." That evening, the parlor lights glowed warm as they met with the foundation's educators and community team. Maya sat beside Lucas, but this time she wasn't just attending, she was leading. Her voice carried quiet authority. "We've cleared the east wing," she began. "The guest rooms will become long-term suites. It's not just housing, it's healing." A woman from Child Services frowned. "You're planning to house foster children at Harding Estate?" "Yes," Maya said firmly. "Children who have nowhere else to go." Another board member frowned. "That isn't standard protocol." Maya smiled lightly. "Neither was I." Lucas took over smoothly. "The estate has space, structure, and resources. What it lacked was the will to see beyond legacy. That changes now." There were murmurs, concern, surprise, but no one openly objected. The world had been watching. Even those who loved silence couldn't deny what they saw happening. Later that night, Maya walked the east wing alone. The rooms were cleaned and bare. Just beds, shelves, soft light, and a sense of beginning. Daniel's room was ready, the first of many. She opened a window. Cool air drifted in. Behind her, Lucas leaned on the doorframe. "You okay?" She nodded. "I used to dream about escaping this house. Now I dream about what it could become." He smiled. "Remember what you told me once? Justice isn't revenge. It's reclamation." She turned toward him. "I remember." "Then this," he said softly. "This is justice." Maya looked out at the grounds, the trees glistening from rain, the gardens quiet and alive. "We're just getting started," she whispered. That weekend, for the first time ever, the Harding estate hosted a family dinner. No uniforms, no ranks, just food, music, and people. Daniel sat between Rosa and Henry, chattering about flying giraffes. Laughter filled the long dining room like sunlight. When dessert arrived, Carla tapped her glass. "I've got a toast," she declared. "To Maya Williams, our storm, our steel, our sister. You walked into this house and shook it down to its bones. You stood taller than they ever thought you would, and now you're building something bigger." Applause filled the room. Maya blinked back tears and lifted her glass. "To the ones who stayed." The voices echoed back together, strong and sure. to the ones who stayed. Just before dawn, Maya stepped into the garden. Mist drifted over the grass like silver threads. She walked barefoot, her robe pulled tight, the air cool and still. Her thoughts lingered on Eleanor's journals, still lying open on her nightstand. One line had stayed with her all night. I fear what Maya could become. Not because she is wrong, but because she reminds me of the version of myself I killed to fit into this life. The words haunted her, not as flattery, but as confession. Not guilt, defeat. At the edge of the garden, beneath the old fig tree, she found the marble bench Eleanor used to love. She sat down slowly and ran her hand across the cold stone. I'm not here to curse you, she whispered, but I won't protect your silence anymore. Footsteps sounded behind her. Lucas approached, carrying 2 steaming mugs. Carla sent this, he said. She told me you'd be out here trying to talk to ghosts. Maya smiled faintly. She's not wrong. Lucas handed her the cup and sat beside her. You found something else in the journals, didn't you? Yes, she said softly. I found out she once believed in change. Then she buried that belief under fear. He nodded slowly. That sounds like her. Maya stared at the mist curling through the hedges. She feared me, she said. Not because of what I did, but because I reminded her of what she gave up. Lucas was quiet for a long time. Do you think that's what waits for me? Fear like that? She turned to him. Only if you stop listening. He exhaled. I don't want to become what this house demanded of her. Then don't, she said gently. You're not your mother, Lucas. You're the one who opened the doors. He smiled faintly. I didn't just open them. I walked through. Because of you. Later that morning, the first children arrived. No ceremony, no cameras, just quiet cars, social workers, and tired faces. 3 boys, 2 girls, ages 6 to 12. Each clutched a small bag and carried the same guarded look of children who'd learned not to trust promises. Carla stood ready with a tray of cookies. Rosa offered juice boxes. Janet held soft blankets. Maya greeted each child by name, kneeling to meet their eyes, not towering, not judging. Lucas stayed a few steps behind, silent, steady. When a little girl named Lena hesitated at the doorway, Maya knelt down. You don't have to come in, she said softly. But if you do, there's a room with your name on the door. It's got a bookshelf taller than me. Lena looked up, uncertain, then slipped her small hand into Maya's. Together, they walked inside. Each child got a room, not a dorm. They got schedules, not rules. Meals, laughter, calm. But most of all, they got dignity, without needing to earn it. By evening, the East Wing sounded different. The halls echoed with laughter, soft music, and the thump of running feet. That night, Lucas hosted a dinner for the foundation donors. It was Maya's idea to move the event from the city to the estate. Let them see what they're supporting, she'd said. The guests arrived in sleek cars and expensive suits, but they were greeted not by butlers, by Carla herself, who handed out name tags and warned with a grin, "Behave! This house bites back now." Maya wore navy blue, not a dress meant to impress, but one that fit the life she'd built. She moved through the crowd with ease, calm and sure. During dinner, Lucas stood and lifted his glass. This house has always been about legacy, he began. But for too long, legacy meant inheritance, money, bloodlines, control. He paused, his gaze finding Maya across the room. Today, we define it differently. Legacy isn't what you build for yourself. It's what you build for others. especially when no one is watching. He raised his glass higher. To the unseen, the unheard, the unstoppable. Someone whispered, "To Maya." Then another echoed it. Soon the whole room joined in. To Maya. She stood slowly, surprised, but instead of soaking in praise, she lifted her own glass. To the ones who cleaned this house when no one clapped. To the ones who stayed when it wasn't safe. To the children learning to trust again. That is legacy. Applause broke out, loud, real, and full of heart. Hours later, when the ballroom was quiet, Maya stood on the upstairs balcony. She leaned on the railing, barefoot again, the night air cool against her skin. The estate below glowed soft and golden, lamps shining, laughter drifting faintly from the east wing. Lucas joined her, hands in his pockets. "You okay?" he asked. "I think so," she said with a small smile. "I think I'm full, like when the day finally stops spinning." He nodded. "You remember when you first came here?" She laughed. "Which time? When I was scrubbing floors, or when you thought I stole that vase?" He chuckled. "Both." Her voice softened. "I remember thinking I'd never be anything but invisible in this house." Lucas turned toward her. "And now?" She looked up at the stars scattered across the dark sky. "Now I'm the part they'll never forget." The night was deep and calm. For the first time, the darkness didn't scare her. It felt like home. From her window later, she could see the west wing glowing faintly, no longer locked and lifeless, but alive with children's laughter. The house was breathing again. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Maya Williams." The voice was calm, professional. "Ms. Williams, my name is Agent Claire Dennison, Department of Justice. We need to meet, privately." They met the next morning in a gray federal building on the city's edge. The conference room was bare, steel chairs, no windows. Dennison slid a thick file across the table. "What you're about to see is confidential. We believe you're a key witness in an investigation tied to Harding Foundation's finances." Maya frowned. "The trust fund? We just reinstated it. Everything's being fixed." "That's the surface," Dennison said. "Underneath is older and worse. Offshore accounts, shell charities, money that disappeared from grants meant for schools and clinics." She opened the file. Names filled the page, most unfamiliar, but two she knew too well. Eleanor Harding and Margaret Ellison. Both signatures appeared beside distributions to projects that never existed. Maya stared. "I had no idea." "We don't think Lucas did either," Dennison said. "But Eleanor's network ran deep. Her influence didn't die with her. It left traps behind." "Why me?" Maya asked quietly. "Why am I here?" Dennison met her eyes. "Because you're the only one who ever challenged the system. Your promotion scared people. Someone panicked and came to us." Maya's chest tightened. "Who?" Dennison didn't answer. Instead, she slid a photo across the table. A grainy security image. Maya recognized the hallway immediately. It was the estate. The timestamp read, 3 nights ago. A figure stood half in shadow, slipping into the West Wing office. The label beneath read, Janet E. Carter. Maya's breath caught. "Janet! No! That can't be right." Dennison's tone was careful. "We believe she accessed records from Eleanor's time. Maybe under pressure, maybe to protect herself. Either way, she's at the center now." Back at the estate, Maya walked the long corridor to the laundry room. The smell of detergent hung in the air. Janet was there, folding linens, her face calm, her posture perfect. just as it had always been. "Janet," Maya said quietly. The older woman looked up, her eyes unreadable. "We need to talk." Janet paused, set the towel down and sighed. "I figured this day would come," she said softly. "I just didn't think you'd be the one holding the match." "I'm not here to burn you," Maya said. "I just need the truth." Janet sat slowly, smoothing her apron. "I started working here when I was 23. Back then, Eleanor ran this place like a fortress. I did what I had to do to survive, signed what she told me to sign, said what she needed to hear. When I wanted to scream, I smiled instead." Maya stood still, her jaw tight. "When you came," Janet continued, "I saw hope, but I also saw the cost. Eleanor might be gone, but her rules, her reach, still breathe through these walls." Her voice trembled, just once. "You woke the house, Maya, but some of the ghosts, they're not ready to leave." Maya's voice was low, steady. "You went into the office, didn't you?" Janet didn't look surprised. "I did," she said softly. "But not to steal." She opened the drawer beside her and pulled out a sealed envelope. "I went there to bury something I should have burned years ago." Maya stared at the envelope. Janet's hands trembled as she held it out. "This is the last of it," she said. "Letters between Eleanor and Ellison. Proof of how they funneled grant money into their own accounts. I didn't want to believe it, but there it is." Maya took the envelope, feeling its weight. "Why didn't you come forward sooner?" Tears filled Janet's eyes. "Because I thought protecting the house meant hiding the shame. I thought silence was loyalty." She swallowed hard. "But you've shown us another way." Maya's expression softened. "It's not too late." Janet nodded and stood, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then take it, and do what I was too afraid to do." That evening, Lucas found Maya on the terrace overlooking the east garden. The air was cool, heavy with the scent of lavender and dusk. She told him everything: the investigation, Janet's confession, the letters, all of it. He didn't interrupt. He just listened, his jaw tightening as the truth sank in. When she finished, he nodded slowly. "We'll cooperate fully," he said. "Whatever the Department of Justice needs." Maya blinked. "You're not angry?" Lucas sighed, staring out at the dark trees. "I'm just tired of pretending this house didn't grow out of rot. If they have to dig out the roots, let them. What we build next will be cleaner." He reached for her hand. His touch was steady, grounding. "You okay?" Maya looked up at the moon peeking through the clouds. "No," she said honestly, "but I'm ready." The next morning, Maya stood before the staff in the main hall. This time, her voice carried not just hope, but truth. "There's an investigation," she began. "Some people we trusted made choices that betrayed that trust. But we are not that betrayal. We are the ones who stayed. We kept the lights on. We raised each other." Her eyes found Janet standing at the back, shoulders straight, chin high. "We don't have to carry this house's sins any longer," Maya said. For a moment, there was silence. Then Carla stepped forward, voice strong. "Then let's build something that doesn't need secrets." One by one, they nodded. That night, in her room, Maya lit a single candle and opened one of Eleanor's last journals. The pages crackled as she turned them. The final entry read, "If the house ever learns to love again, it will be because someone taught it how." Maya closed the book slowly and smiled through tears. Then maybe it finally has. The next morning, downtown buzzed with chaos. Reporters crowded the courthouse steps, their cameras flashing like sparks. Headlines screamed across newspapers. Harding Foundation under federal investigation. A billionaire's house of lies. From maid to whistleblower. Maya Williams speaks out. But inside the courtroom, it was quiet. Maya sat near the front beside Lucas and Agent Dennison. Behind her, Janet sat tall and calm, her hands folded neatly in her lap. For the first time in decades, she wasn't hiding. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Carla Mendez, stood before the judge. "Your Honor," she began, "this case is not simply about stolen money. It's about power, about a system that took funds meant for children, schools, and struggling families, and fed them into private accounts." She lifted a stack of documents. These were buried for years, until now. Carla turned toward Maya briefly, and gave a small nod of respect. During recess, Maya stepped into the hallway to breathe. The building was cold, with tall marble pillars that seemed to echo every footstep. Her heels clicked softly, but her thoughts thundered. Lucas joined her, leaning against the wall. "They're painting you as a hero," he said. "I'm not," she answered quietly. "I'm just a witness, a survivor, not a saint." He smiled faintly. "Maybe, but you're the reason the story didn't die in silence." Maya looked down, her voice trembling. "You know what scares me most?" "What?" "That when this is over, people will think the house is clean, that burning the ledgers and handing over papers fixed everything." Lucas nodded slowly. "But it's not fixed." "No," she said. "Healing isn't the same as justice. It's slower, messier. It takes time." Inside, Janet was called to the stand. She walked with her head high, voice steady. "I worked at the Harding estate for 25 years, she began. "I cleaned the rooms where secrets were made. I signed papers I didn't understand because I thought survival meant silence." She paused, her voice cracking just once. "But watching Maya taught me that silence is betrayal." The room was still. "I'm not here because I was brave," she said softly. "I'm here because someone else showed me how to be." When she stepped down, she passed Maya and whispered, "Thank you." Maya squeezed her hand. The trial lasted 5 long days. The defense tried everything. They blamed Eleanor, said she was dead, said records were incomplete, said Maya wanted fame. But the truth stood taller than the lies. When the verdict came, the courtroom held its breath. The judge read aloud, "Restitution from the Harding Family Trust. Full transfer of foundation control to an independent ethical board. And, most importantly, formal protection and recognition for Maya Williams as a whistleblower." The room filled with gasps. Lucas reached for her hand. "You did it," he whispered. Maya shook her head softly. "No, we did." The press swarmed the estate for days. News vans, interviews, headlines. But Maya declined them all. She didn't want fame. She wanted peace. She spent her days in the East Wing again, helping Daniel learn piano, watching Lena paint wildflowers on the walls. On Sundays, she helped in the kitchen. On Wednesdays, she sat in the garden with Janet, sharing tea and silence. On Fridays, she met with the new ethics board. The house was still old, still imperfect, but it was changing, and it remembered. Not the silence, not the shame, but the sound of voices rising. One afternoon, Maya wandered into her old room, the small one near the servants' corridor. The floorboards still creaked. Dust floated in the sunlight. In the drawer, she found a notebook she hadn't opened in years. Inside were her own words, from long ago. "I don't belong here. They don't see me. I miss being seen." She closed the book gently. "We made it," she whispered to her younger self. and walked out without looking back. That weekend, the Harding estate opened its gates for the first time in history. A community day, music, food, tours, and laughter. Former staff returned as guests. Children played tag across the gardens. Carla flipped burgers. Rosa taught kids to bake cornbread. Henry ran a gardening booth. Maya stood near the edge of it all, a glass of lemonade in her hand, smiling. Lucas walked up carrying a picnic basket. "There's a rumor," he said playfully. "Oh?" she teased. "They say you're starting your own foundation." "Rumors travel fast," she said, raising an eyebrow. He handed her a folder. "Then let's make it true." Inside was a proposal, her name printed at the top. The Williams House Project. She stared at it, quiet for a moment. "It's yours," Lucas said. "Run it your way." She looked out at the crowd, the laughter, the color, the life blooming where pain used to live. She nodded. "It's time." That night, fireworks burst over the estate, painting the sky in silver and gold. Maya stood under the old oak tree, the same tree where she'd once burned Eleanor's ledger. This time, she wasn't alone. The staff stood beside her. The children held sparklers, their faces glowing. Maya lifted her voice. "This house was built on secrets," she said. "But now it's growing something else." She looked at Lucas, then at Daniel and Lena. "Truth, family, a future none of us have to survive. We get to live it." Applause rose, cheers and laughter echoing through the night. Someone handed her a sparkler. She raised it high. Behind her, the old house glowed in the firelight, still scarred, still standing, but finally honest. Autumn arrived in New Haven, the Tucky, Harding estate, once cold and brooding, now blushed with life. Ivy curled along its stone walls. Golden leaves danced across the steps. Inside the east wing, children laughed and played. Rosa passed out pumpkin muffins. Janet hung hand-painted signs that read, "You belong here, and this house sees you." In the study, Maya and Lucas sat across from each other, wearing old flannel shirts, their smiles easy and quiet. "You sure you want to do this?" Lucas asked, holding out a folder. She nodded. "It's time." Inside was the final deed transfer. The Harding estate would officially become the permanent home of the Williams House Project, a sanctuary for children in foster care, displaced families, and young adults with nowhere else to go. Maya hadn't wanted it named after her, but the board insisted. "You were the fire that woke this place," Carla had told her. "Let it carry your name so others remember they can burn through lies too." Lucas signed first, then Maya. And just like that, the house was reborn. Not inherited, earned. The ceremony was small, held under the oak tree. No press, no cameras. Just friends, staff, children, neighbors. Janet spoke first. "For 25 years, I served this house like a loyal ghost," she said. "But it took Maya to remind me that loyalty doesn't mean silence. And ghosts don't raise children. People do." Then Carla stepped up. "This isn't just a home," she said. "It's a declaration that no child is disposable, that no worker is invisible, that legacy isn't built on silence. It's built on truth." Finally, Lucas took the podium. "I grew up in a house full of rules and reputation," he said. "But Maya taught me that real power isn't about who sits at the head of the table. It's about who makes sure everyone has a seat." He smiled at her. "And today, we pass this house to the one who truly made it a home." Maya stepped forward. A breeze lifted her hair. She wasn't shaking anymore. "I was once the maid who scrubbed these floors," she said softly. "The girl who ate dinner on the steps. The woman they told to stay quiet. But I listened. To my own voice. To the children. To the cracks in the walls. And I chose not to be silent. Her eyes scanned the crowd. Rosa, Henry, Janet, Lucas, Daniel, Lena. "This isn't just my story," Maya said. "It's ours. And it doesn't end here. It grows every time a child walks through these doors and hears a yes instead of a you can't. Every time truth wins over fear." She lifted her hand. "To justice without revenge. To family without condition. To the light that stayed." The crowd echoed her words. To the light that stayed. And for the first time in decades, the house didn't feel haunted. It felt whole. That evening, when the guests were gone and the children asleep, Maya walked through the halls alone. The parlor, the staircase, the study. Each room a memory, each one healed. In the library, she found Eleanor's journal again. She didn't hate her anymore. She understood. Fear had turned Eleanor into a warden. But Maya had chosen to be something else. A gardener. She smiled to herself. "And this house?" she whispered. It finally bloomed. On the porch, Lucas waited with 2 mugs of warm cider. "You think it'll last?" he asked. Maya looked up at the stars, glowing softly above the roofline. "No," she said. "But we'll fight for it anyway." He grinned. "Then let's keep building." They clinked their mugs together, the sound soft and sure. Below them, the house glowed with warm light in every window. Laughter rose from the kitchen. Music drifted through the halls. The kind of light that doesn't demand attention. The kind that simply stays. If Maya's journey inspired you, hit like, share this story, and subscribe so more hearts can find hope, courage, and the light that stays.